Two people start the same job on the same day. Same salary, same paycheck. Both decide to save for retirement. Both put in exactly the same amount every single month for 30 years into the same investments, earning the same returns. They retire on the same day with what looks like the same nest egg. And then one of them hands the IRS an extra $200,000 that the other one simply keeps. 200 grand. Gone. For nothing. And the only difference between these two people, the single thing that caused a six-figure gap, was one box they checked on a form on their very first day. Nobody explained that box to them. So today we're going to explain it to you. That box says Roth or Traditional, and it is quietly one of the most expensive decisions you will ever make by accident. Here's the honest part up front. There is no universally correct answer, and anyone who tells you there is doesn't actually understand the math. But there is a correct answer for you, and it comes down to one single thing almost nobody thinks about clearly. So let's give our two savers, Rachel and Tyler, the exact same everything and change only that one box. Rachel picks Roth. Tyler picks Traditional. Let's find out who was right and why it might be you. One quick thing to hold on to. Rachel is 28, a few years into her career. Tyler is 45, deep in his highest earning decade. Keep that in mind. It's going to matter more than either of them realizes. Start with what the box actually does, because it's far simpler than the jargon makes it sound. It's a question about when you pay your taxes, not if. When. Tyler picked Traditional, so he gets a tax break today. Every dollar he puts in is a dollar the government doesn't tax this year, which lowers his tax bill right now. It feels fantastic, but that money isn't tax-free. It's taxed later. Decades from now, when Tyler pulls it out in retirement, every dollar, his contributions and all of the growth on top, gets taxed as ordinary income. Rachel picked Roth. She gets no tax break today. She pays full tax on her income first, then invests what's left. But here's her reward. That money and every dollar it grows into over the next 30 years is never taxed again. Not the growth, not the withdrawals, nothing. Tyler pays later. Rachel paid now. That's the entire difference. Think of it like a farmer with seeds. Tyler doesn't pay tax on the seeds he plants, but he pays tax on the entire harvest. Rachel pays a small tax on the seeds, and then the whole harvest is hers. Tax-free. If that harvest is going to be enormous, and over 30 years of compounding it usually is, which tax would you rather pay? The tiny one on the seed, or the giant one on the crop? So which is better? And here's the part that annoys everyone who's ever argued about this, because the surprising truth is that under one condition, they are exactly the same. Watch. Say you have $1,000 and your tax rate is 20%. Tyler Traditional invests the whole $1,000. It grows 10 times over the years to $10,000, and then he pays his 20% on the way out. He keeps $8,000. Rachel, Roth, pays her 20% first, so she only invests $800. That grows 10 times to $8,000, and she pays nothing on the way out. She also keeps $8,000, the exact same number. It is not a trick, it's just multiplication, and multiplication doesn't care about the order. So if your tax rate is the same now as it is in retirement, Roth and Traditional produce an identical result down to the penny, which means this entire debate, all of it, collapses into one single question. Will your tax rate be higher or lower when you retire than it is today? That is the whole game. So let's think about that honestly. The classic argument says your tax rate will be lower in retirement, and for plenty of people, that's true. During your career, you're earning your peak income. In retirement, you often live on less, which can drop you into a lower tax bracket. So if you're a high earner today sitting in a high bracket, and you'll be a modest spender later in a low one, Traditional wins. You grab the fat deduction now while your rate is high, and you pay the tax later when your rate is low. For someone at the peak of a big career, that is often exactly the right move, and Tyler might genuinely be that person. But notice the assumption hiding inside that whole argument. It quietly assumes you know what tax rates will look like decades from now. Nobody does. But here's what flips it for an enormous number of people, and it's everything the simple argument quietly ignores. First, are you early in your career or in a modest tax bracket right now? Then your tax rate today might be the lowest it will ever be for the rest of your life. Locking in that low rate with a Roth and then never paying tax on that money again is a phenomenal deal. Second, think about tax rates themselves. Today's rates are historically low by the standards of the last century, and the national debt is not exactly shrinking. Nobody knows the future, but betting that taxes will be lower 30 years from now is a genuinely bold bet. A Roth removes that bet entirely. Whatever rates do, Rachel simply does not care. Third, and this one is huge, the Roth has no required minimum distributions. Tyler will be forced by law to start draining his traditional account in his 70s, whether he needs the money or not, generating taxable income he never asked for. Rachel's Roth has no such rule. She can let it sit and grow, untouched and tax-free, for as long as she likes, and even pass it to her kids tax-free. And here's a subtle one that quietly makes the Roth even stronger, and almost nobody catches it. Both accounts have the same contribution limit, but a dollar inside a Roth is worth more than a dollar inside a traditional because the Roth dollar has already had its taxes paid. So when Rachel maxes out her Roth, she is actually stuffing more real, spendable retirement money into the same sized box than Tyler is into his. Maxing a Roth is quietly like being handed a bigger contribution limit for free. For a young person maxing out every year, that edge alone can be worth tens of thousands of dollars by the time they retire. Now, to be fair to Tyler, there is a catch that rescues the traditional argument, and it's a big one. Tyler got a tax break today. If Tyler actually invests that tax savings, every single year the math swings back toward him, and traditional can pull ahead again. But you already know the punchline, don't you? Most people don't invest it. They take the deduction, enjoy the slightly bigger paycheck, and the savings quietly dissolve into their life. And a traditional account whose tax savings got spent is just a worse Roth with a tax bill stapled to it. Rachel never faced that temptation. Her taxes were paid upfront automatically, so what she sees in her account is what she genuinely owns. So now we can say the real answer. It was never Roth versus traditional. It's one question. Are your taxes higher now or higher later? If you're young, early in your career, or sitting in a low to middle bracket, your taxes are almost certainly higher later, so Roth usually wins. If you're a high earner in your peak years staring down a brutal tax bill today, traditional often wins, so take the deduction. And if you genuinely don't know, which is honestly most people, the smartest move is the one nobody advertises, because nobody makes a commission on it. Do both. Split your contributions and put some in each. You hedge against future tax rates you can't possibly predict. You hand your future self both a tax-free bucket and a taxable one to pull from so you can control your own bracket in retirement, and you stop trying to guess the unknowable. Picture that flexibility for a second. In a strong year, you pull from the Roth and pay zero. In a lean year, you pull from the traditional while your rate sits at rock bottom. Having both buckets isn't a compromise. It's a lever most retirees never get to pull. And that $200,000 gap from the very beginning, that is simply what happens across a lifetime when someone guesses wrong on the tax question. They get hit with rising rates and forced withdrawals on a big traditional balance, while the Roth saver beside them pulls out every dollar completely tax-free and leaves the rest to keep growing. It isn't a freak scenario. It's just the tax question, compounded quietly across 40 years. And to be clear, I'm not a tax advisor. The contribution limits and rules change, and your situation is your own. But the framework holds. So here's how to decide before your next paycheck. Ask yourself one honest question. Is my tax rate probably lower today than it will be when I retire? If the answer is yes, lean Roth and never look back. If you're in your peak, earning years, and drowning in taxes right now, lean traditional and take the break with a clear conscience. And if you're genuinely not sure, do both and let your future self thank you for refusing to gamble. Oh, and one last thing. If your employer offers a match, that match almost always lands in a traditional bucket no matter which box you picked, and you take it every single time, because free money beats this entire debate combined. So tell me in the comments, are you Team Roth, Team Traditional, or Team Do Both? And did anyone ever actually explain that checkbox to you before today? And if this finally made it click, subscribe. Because every week we run the real math on the money decisions everyone else just checks a box on and forgets.